Welcome back to the final instalment of converting Larry Horsfield's PAWS adventure, Dawn Patrol, to DAAD using DAAD Builder. Before we continue with his magazine listing, just going to go back to the point in the last article where he was talking about using mode to stop the adventure location scrolling off the screen. I said in that episode that mode had changed, and the way to do this probably now was with the window command. So we'll look at how to implement that. It's not absolutely perfect because we're going to set a fixed size window for the location to be printed in. I think the maximum size of a location description in this game is 7 lines. So we'll set our window to those 7 lines, and then we'll set the rest of the print commands to go to a separate window. That'll cause it to scroll underneath the location text without the location text ever coming off the screen. Obviously, if it's a very short location description, you're going to have quite a bit of blank space on the screen. But I can't think of a neater way of doing it at the moment. One other thing is there was a typo on my part in the last episode, and that was setting the flag 53 to the value of 64. If we just jump down to the section here, I've typed in set 5364. That should actually be let 5364. Set will just set that flag to the value of 255. I don't do enough error checking to pick that up in my test adventure yet, which is something I need to look into doing. So we're going to start in process 0. At the beginning of process 0, it jumps to process 6, which initializes all of our flag values. And then after that, when it comes back, it sets up various windows. So we're going to get rid of this section here because we're not worried about split screen mode. If it's a text adventure only, we don't need to worry about graphics for the Amstrad. And we're going to change window 1, which is where most of the text output's going to go. I'm going to change that to start on line 7. So we need a win app, and we want that to start on line 7, and we want it to start on the left-hand side, so position 0, and we're going to make that full-size window. Then window 0, we're going to leave the same for this section. So we don't have to worry about all of the graphics information, seeing if there's a picture of the location displaying it, so we can remove all of that. Again, we don't need to worry about split mode, so let's delete all of this. Now we want the location description to go to window 0, so we're going to make that our primary window at the moment, and we're going to make that full size. So that's all okay. We can get rid of the skip information here. We don't want to go to window 1 with the information at all, so we're going to remove the window 1 from there. So window 0 is our primary window. This is where the location information is going to be printed. So after this, if it's not dark, we describe the location the player is at. Then we run process 3. Process 3 gave us the extra information that happens after a location description. So we had, the door is open or the door is closed. So we want that to be included in window 0. Anything after process 3, we want to be printed on window 1. So we need to make window 1 the currently active window after this point. And so we change that to being window 1. And that now should display the location text at the top of the screen. And then everything after that will just scroll underneath it. I'm not going to demonstrate that in my test adventure because it doesn't quite work correctly. So I'm going to export this and then compile it in DAAD Ready. Okay, so now we have the description of the location at the top of the screen, and hopefully as we type things now, it should start disappearing underneath the screen. I'm going to keep trying to get something that isn't here to fill the screen up. So as you can see, it keeps the location text on the screen, and everything else now will scroll underneath that. Okay, so that works fine. So at this point, we can go back to following the rest of the article. So this is the final part of Larry Horsfield's Poor Adventure writing tutorial. Last month, we ended with just 2 problems left: how to saddle and bridle the horse. We'll start with the saddle, and there are 2 inputs the player can use to implement this action. It says, hold on though, surely the word saddle is a noun. It says not to worry, there's an easy way around that, and that is to insert a null word as the verb. The 2 response table entries for the saddle using flag 14, plus the entry for putting the bridle on the horse, which is similar to saddle, are thus. And so these are the ones we need to enter. I think we already had saddle and bridle in the vocabulary list, so we need to jump down to section 5, back to where we're adding our entries. So the last one was the no spitting notice. And so we now need an entry of put saddle and then we want a prep of on, and then we want a noun to a horse. We need to check that we're carrying the saddle. So we need present 7. This is checking the horse is present. If the horse is present and we're carrying the saddle, destroy the saddle. And then we want to set flag 14. We're going to need to create a new flag in this case. So let's go back to our defines. And we're going to add a new flag in here. And this is going to be horse saddled. And we're going to make that 252. And just check there's also a bridle one as well. So let's have horse bridled. And we're going to make that 251. Okay, let's go back to our text editor, back to section 5. So we destroy 5. We now want to set F horse saddled. And we don't have OK in DAAD, so we want a done. And then we want the next entry, which is having a blank in the verb. And then we want saddle, noun to being horse. And we want to do exactly the same thing again. So we're just going to copy and paste the rest of that. And then we also want to be able to bridle the horse. So we want put bridle, preposition of on, Now to the horse. And then this is quite similar, so I'm just going to copy that and change over the values. So we want to be carrying 6, which is the bridle. The horse needs to be present. We destroy 6, and we're going to set horse bridled. Okay, and we don't have an OK, so it's just a done on the end. Then it says, now we come to the entry that will, provided all the gameplay has been completed, mark the final input of our mini adventure, i.e. ride horse. First of all, insert the verb ride into vocabulary as verb 41. So we need to add a word of ride. It's already assigned to 41 because that's our first empty space. So we're going to add that. You could also insert the verb mount as a synonym. So let's just do that as well. We need to change that to be 41 and add. Now go to the process table and begin 2 new tables, 5 and 6. Before we insert any entries in response or process, switch to the messages text and insert the following messages. So let's do that, and then we'll go back and do the processes. So messages, we're going to add new one here, horse has no. And then insert another message, saddle, and one for bridle. And then we want, you don't have a sword, so we need to check obviously that everything is correct before we can ride the horse and leave the game. You're not wearing the, and the final message that we've mounted the horse and gone out on patrol. So just label those. Horse has no. Saddle. Bridle. Don't have sword. Not wearing. And you mount horse. Okay, so let's go back and add those extra processes in, and they're going to be slightly different numbers to his listing. So the last one we had was process 8. So we now need a process 9 and process 10. Actually, this message should have been longer, shouldn't it? So let's go back to messages. So it should have a new line in there. And it's 2 new lines. Well done. And you finished the adventure. Okay, back to our text editor. So it says you should position well done in message 22, so it's the center of the screen, and you put a blank line at the bottom using escape routine. I put brackets around message 17 as there is a space at the end. You'll notice I've used the underline symbol in message 21. This will print as the object name in place of the underscore when combined with certain contacts in the respective entries. Okay, now go to the response table and insert the following entry. So we go back to process 5. back to where we've been adding our entries. I'm going to put one more in here, which is ride horse. And we need to check where we are at 3. We can also just to check whether the horse was present. We're going to process. It's not going to be 5, is it? So process 2 tables, 5 and 6. That's going to be 9, and we're done. Okay. Now switch to the response table. Select process 5, or in our case 9. We're going to handle the conditions that determine whether the player can ride the horse by inserting entries in process 5. Checking to see if the player is wearing the helmet and chainmail, not carrying the sword, and if the saddle and bridle are not on the horse. The checking entries in process 5 are thus. Okay, so we need to start with not worn, object 2. We need to find out what that object is, motto, and we need to let 51 equal 2, and we want message 21 and done. So I'm just going to jump up and have a look at what flag 51 is. That's up in the define section at the top. And flag 51 is the currently referred object. So we're changing that to be the object number 2, which is the helmet. Let's jump back down to that process table. Okay, so then we do the same thing again, but this time with object 3, which will presumably be the chainmail. So not worn 3, we let object equal 3. So when it prints that message, it's going to fill the underscore in with the chainmail or the helmet. Next we go down to not carried. And we need to have the blank entries in there. Not carried, object 4. Then we have message M. What was the message? Message 20, and we should have done the same thing here as we put those entries in. So we got message, it was 21, which is not wearing, and we can just copy that across to here. There's no point putting the labels in and then not using them. So we've done that, and then we want a done, and then we want we want 0, 14. 14 was set 14, which is the saddle on the horse. So 0 F horse saddled. We want message and 17, which in this case is the horse has no. And then we're going to have the other message, which is saddle. And we're done. And then we're going to do the same again for the bridle. So let's just copy and paste that one there. So 0 horse bridled. Message the horse has no, and we want message bridle. And we're done. So it's the what-o action, what object, is explained in the PAWS manual. But in this case, let 51 equal 2 refers to object 2, the helmet, or 3, the coat of chainmail. Indicates to PAWS that the number is being referred to, and the description of that object number is printed in the message in place of the underscore character. If you print the system messages, you'll see quite a lot of them use this facility. The final entry to be inserted in process 5 is the one that is acted upon when all the player is wearing is the helmet and chainmail, carrying the sword, and the saddle and bridle are on the horse. This entry is thus, so this is last one in process 5, and that's the one which says everything is okay. So let's add that final entry in. So if all of these checks have failed, we'll have dropped back out of this process. If we've got to the end, we're wearing everything, the horse is all saddled and bridled, we're going to come through to this final entry, which will say that we've won the game. So message, we want to set 16. So that's going to be a new flag. What's the new flag for? I've included set 16 line because some of the entries will be putting later. Okay, so we need to have a new flag here. We don't really know what this is going to be for. F, let's just call it a check flag for now. And we'll add that into the list of defines in a minute. The next entry is turns. We don't have turns anymore in DAAD as a conduct. Put N for the moment. So let's just go back up to, I think the number of turns are still stored in a flag, which is up here somewhere, flag 31. And this covers 2 bytes because if you're taking more than 255 turns. So I think if we go back down to that entry, we can add our own message. Mess you took. And then after that, we want, because it's going to be 2 flags value or 2 bytes, we want to deprint F turns. And that should show how many turns we took in the game. We need to add that check flag in, so let's go to defines. And we're going to make that 250. Okay. So right, so if we're not put any conditions in this entry, the previous entries have checked for objects being either worn or carried, saddle bridle being on the horse, added 16 because of some of the entries we'll be putting in later. If the player is wearing the helmet and chainmail, carrying the sword and the saddle, and the bridle is on the horse, when ride horse or mount horse is typed in, message 22 is printed on the screen. The number of turns you have taken is shown, and you are asked if you want to play again. Full solution for the adventure, including the minimum number of inputs, is, by the way, as follows. Okay, so let's try. We go up, we get the torch, we come down, we go west, we go north, We look under the bench. Okay, so we picked up the helmet, we wear the helmet, light the torch. Okay, so now we go south, we go east, we open the door, we go south, we get the sword, we go north, we go east and we go east, we get all, and we go west, we search the straw, we get chain, we get coat. Not sure why we have coat there rather than chain, whether that was a change in the original listing or whether I typed something wrong earlier on. So we want to wear coat, we want to saddle horse, we want to put bridle on horse, and then we want to ride the horse. Okay, so it's printed the wrong message there, which I think means I've done something wrong with my message flag. And it says we took 25. I need to put turns after that. So let's go back to the process at the end, which is where we've been working. So first of all, we took, then we print there, and then we want to add a message on the end to explain what that number stands for. Space in there and turns. So there did used to be messages in the PAWS system messages that were built in. Go to system messages. I think these ones here used to have the information in for the turns, which got taken out in DAAD for some reason. Back to the text there, so jump back down to that last section. So everything succeeded. I didn't put a message value in there, that's why we got that strange message in there. So we want message, and it's last message, which is, wasn't not wearing, was it? Did I not? Let's go to messages. Did I not give it a flag? Okay, we haven't saved it at all in there. Okay, go back in that case. Copy that there. Let's just put a new line on the end and a new line again. Well done. You want a new line, and you have finished the adventure. Said we should center this, so I think that's about 12 characters long. The screen width for the spectrum is 40 columns, so I made a 28, so 14. If we put 14 spaces in here, hopefully that should center it for us. And we didn't give this, so let's just call that well done. We need to go back then to our text editor, jump down to that last process. We need to add that message in, which is message well done. Let's go back and check that it stayed in there this time. Yeah, okay. Right. So let's go down then. We've tried that. We know the adventure completes. It says that, however, isn't the end of the program. You may have realized that firstly we inserted another process table which we haven't used yet, and that we haven't made any use at all of process table 2, which I explained was PAWS turn at the adventure. There also isn't any rush to complete the adventure, although the storyline mentions that if you haven't joined your comrades, your commander will notice your absence. We will therefore use this part of the plot to provide a bit of excitement by having your commander come looking for you if you haven't completed the adventure within 30 moves. First of all, insert the following 2 messages, which is handy because we're already in the message section. So we have new message here. And so let's call that voice yelling. And we want to add another message. There. And call that failed game. Okay. So you should start each message by inserting a blank line at the top using the escape routine. You should also put a blank line at the end of message 24. So a blank line at the beginning, so that's just a new line character. New line character at the beginning of that one. And you also want a new line character at the end of message 24. So let's put that in as well. This is to separate the messages when on the screen. After entering those messages, go to the process table, and in process 2, insert this short entry. Go to process 6, so go back to the text editor, and this is going to be process 4 this time around. Process 4, which is equivalent to old process table 2, and we're going to jump down to process 6. It's not 6, it's 10, isn't it, because of our numbering system being different. So let's go to process 10, and okay, so this is using flag 5, which I think was one of the, not listed there, I'm pretty sure it's one of the auto decrementing flags in PAWS. So they don't exist anymore, so we're going to have to create our own version of that, like we did in the ticket when we had the flag which counted down to the bird flying. We're going to have to do something similar here. Let's go down to process 10 where we're entering this in. So our first entry is going to be 0. So this is that check flag that we created earlier. So if that is 0, we then check whether flag, okay, so if check flag is 0, we check whether flag 5 is 0. So we need to create that decrementing flag. So let's jump back over to our defines. I'm going to add a new define, which is F decrement flag, and we're going to make that 249. So that's the flag we're going to use. Let's go back to process 10. So 0 F decrement flag. So this is the very first time it runs through this process. Both of these should be 0. we're now going to set that decrementing flag. We're going to set that to be 31, so we get 31 turns at the game. Now we want to check whether the check flag is 0. 16, and then we want to check whether flag 5 equals 10. So this is going to be, when we've got 10 goes left, we're going to get a message to let us know we're being hunted by our commander. So equals F decrement flag 10, and we then want message, and this is going to be M voice yelling, and then we want one more entry after that, which is 016. Should be 16. This F check flag. I've made the same mistake here. Check flag equals, and that's not 51, that's our decrementing flag, equals 1. Then we want the message that we failed the game. 4. We have the turn, so we want the same information we had here to say how many turns we took. I can't remember, I think there used to be a score flag as well as turns, but both of those went missing when we moved to DAAD. So in addition to the ordinary user flags, 11 to 28 and 60 to 255, there are 9 auto-decrementing flags, although these don't exist anymore, as we've covered. So what we now need to do is we need to decrement that flag ourselves. We're going to do that in process 4. So this runs every single time we take an action. We're going to decrement it before we go into the process 10. And we're going to say greater than F decrementing flag is greater than 0. Then we're going to minus that flag by 1. Okay. So it says, where do we go from here? So far I've given you the instructions, the rest is up to you. So let's just test out that new section. So we're just going to randomly wander around and see whether that flag decrements and we get yelled at. Okay, so you hear a loud voice yell out nearby, "Private Smith, where are you hiding, you horrible little man?" You should go 2 more goes then, and then you fail the adventure. You hear footsteps behind you and a gruff voice shouts, "Here he is, throw him in the dungeon for failing to report for duty. 2 burly soldiers frog march you away and throw you in the castle dungeon. You took too many moves and have failed. You took 30 turns, would you like another go?" Okay, so that all works fine. So the rest of this is just talking about writing adventures. So far I've given you the instructions, the rest is up to you. You can expand Dawn Patrol by inserting examine messages and response table entries for all the objects in the adventure. How about putting in more locations around the castle? Maybe a puzzle or 2 of your own advising is up to you. If you're serious about adventure writing, I advise you to start by writing a small adventure about twice the size of Dawn Patrol, and then work your way up to a full-size adventure. The average 48k adventure should be about 40 to 50 locations. and there should be an evenly balanced number of puzzles ranging in difficulty from dead easy to quite hard. If you're working in 128K, the game can of course be much bigger, but don't fall into the trap of putting in loads of walkthrough locations. If you're a humorous adventure writer, watch out. Most adventure players are adults and do not appreciate modern humour, nor do they like smuttiness or bad language. A lot of players are women. Okay, you've written your first adventure, now what? If you're interested in a serious attempt at an adventure, you should have the game play tested. This involves giving the game to someone who plays through the adventure, trying to solve the puzzles in various ways, checking for spelling and grammatical errors. You should give the game to a couple of playtesters first. Once they've found bugs, you can correct them. After this, give the game to another 2 friends to playtest again. They're bound to find bugs the others missed. And then after that is about marketing your adventure. I think none of the houses that use the publishing editors exist at all anymore. Nowadays, I think most things are published on itch.io, which is a great way to sell your games to the retro community or provide them for free, whatever you want to do. So I think that's it for this game. Let's just have one more go at exporting this and building it in DAAD Ready and check it all runs correctly. So here we are on the game now. Probably should have corrected this as well to be on a new line, but I'm not going to worry about that now. So we're in the castle courtyard, stables to the east, archway leads to the west, so we go up, we get the torch, we come down, we go west, we go north, we look under the bench, we light the torch, we go south, we go east, we open the door, we go south and we get the sword, we go north, we're going to go east, we're going to go east, we're going to get all, we're going to go, that's interesting, I wonder why that's not showing the object names. Okay, going to go west, we're going to search the straw, isn't it? Search straw. So I'm going to get the coat and wear it. Okay, so again, that's not saying what we've got. We hear the voice sound yelling out nearby, but at this point we should be able to ride the horse. I'm not wearing the inventory. What have I got? I didn't wear the helmet, did I? And then ride the horse. Horse has a saddle. I need to saddle the horse. And I need to put the bridle on the horse. Now I can ride the horse. Ooh, one turn to go. Okay, so a couple of things there then as to, we didn't look at why it was saying coat and not chainmail, and also why those names of things are showing up when we get them. So it's going to jump back and have a look at what's going on there. Okay, so just made a few changes now. So originally I had coat, I didn't have coat of chainmail, which is why that was looking a bit strange. For each of these, I didn't have things like a helmet, a coat of chainmail, a sword. I just had helmet, coat, sword, saddle. I'm wondering whether that A makes a difference in the interpreter when it's running. Mine copes with it, but maybe in reality it shouldn't cope with it. We haven't got an article at the front. We'll find that out in a second. And also in the vocabulary, I've just added a synonym in For coat, I've added chain in as well because I tried to take the chain mail and so there wasn't any here. Whereas if we've got a coat of chain mail, we should be able to refer to it in both ways. So I'm just going to export that zip file again. Okay, I'm just going to run the bat file with 48K spectrum and see what happens this time round. So let's go east and east, and we want to get all. Yes, that's interesting. We need to have the article at the beginning of the object name of a saddle or an apple, a bridle. Otherwise, the interpreter totally ignores that when it's filling in the underscore for each object. So that's a lesson worth learning. Okay, I think that's it for this series of building Larry Horsfield's adventure. I'm not sure where I'm going to go from here. I have a couple of ideas of things I might try next. So the next video I do may be on the drawstring graphics and using those. But that's it for the end of this video.